For a lot of the audience out there that thinks it's over in Norway, well, let me reassure you, I believe it's far from over. And the reason I'm saying this is based on the latest article that the Vartland News put out, and it's being broadcasted as well on Avoid JW. We're going to take a look at that right now. So the Vartland News, right here, they're saying once the disappointment has subsided, there is still much positive to be gained. Psychological violence, negative social control, the right to free withdrawal. Do these words mean anything to us? So this is what's being worked over. We're going to look at this from Avoid JW, Raquel and Jan, some positives in Norway ruling. So Oslo, Norway. So we have now received the Court of Appeal's conclusion in the years-long dispute between Jehovah's Witnesses and the Norwegian state that a practice has been going on continuously since 2019. Extensive investigations and legal proceedings gave us full understanding, and a decision from the state administrator confirm in the appeal case with the Ministry of Children and Family Affairs, victories in the injunction case in both the District Court and the Court of Appeal, and finally a full victory in the District Court. Many people have supported our cause, our case. Now we face 3 judges in the Court of Appeal who came to the opposite conclusion, and they use this word under doubt. Anytime they use that word, it's almost like the court is saying, you know what, maybe this should go to a Supreme Court because we're under doubt here. But, you know, based on all the lies that Jehovah's Witnesses told, now they're not thinking that. They actually believe that crap. They believe what the lawyers say. They believe how they twist it. They believe how they lie about it. But yet the evidence shows, like right from their instructions, right from the videos on how to shun, right from the outset of that court case, the JW.org videos show the true nature of shunning. So the court is under doubt because all of these testimonies, these lawyers, these legal people, Jordan Peterson from Watchtower, they all come up and lie and they twist it. So the court is under doubt. Now, what is the court to do? Well, a court is supposed to believe lawyers because lawyers are under a very, very high oath. So when you get Risdale going up there who knows nothing about what it's like to be a Jehovah's Witness, and this guy's just taken all his lying information from jw.org. It's how they push lies in court and win. So the appellate court, the appeals court, is under doubt. They're not sure. So let's carry on. When the disappointment has subsided, there are still many positive things to take away from the reading of the judgment. We're not lawyers, and we leave in-depth legal analysts to those who know about such things. But when we comment, we do with our own expertise in the form of lived lives, an insight that lawyers and spectators will never be able to fully grasp. We write with the hope that this, too, has value. So the practice is considered proven and that the state's view of this is correct. Norwegian Court of Appeal. Jehovah's Witnesses went into the trial with the claim that the state had been misled by a few disgruntled former members and thus gained a completely wrong impression of the exclusion scheme. And the court dismissed this completely. Like the district court and the administration, the judgment is very clear that our stories correspond to Jehovah's Witnesses' own instructions and practices as we described it. And the practice is considered proven, and that the state's view of this is correct. Now, the court finds it proven that the practice applies to adult members who are thrown out, that it applies to those who opt out themselves, and that it will apply to children. And the court also states on page 18 that unnecessary socializing with those excluded from the elders' book is considered shameless behavior and entails reprisals. So we have been fully vindicated here. Jehovah's Witnesses claimed the opposite in court, but this was rejected. I wonder what the leaders of Jehovah's Witnesses think about this. Because the court's rejected what Jehovah's Witnesses claimed. Now, for us, it is reassuring that all parts of both the administration and the legal system have now established this as a fact. We also hope that the media will now use this as a basis in the future cases. These are not just loose allegations from dissatisfied members, as the witnesses claim, but recognized and proven. So about free withdrawal, the court finds that such consequences of withdrawal are so negative that some members for that reason choose not to withdraw. So central to this point is that free withdrawal means here that the Court of Appeal arrives at the opposite conclusion of all the preceding paragraphs because the opportunity to withdraw in writing is given the greatest weight. So that the psychological burden and the subsequent sanctions is given less weight. An example of the fact that law and psychology are two completely different disciplines. Now, the court writes on page 22, recognizing that those who opt out experience extensive sanctions, reduce contact with, in particular, close family members, and will, for the most people, be very difficult and burdensome. And the court assumes that such consequences of withdrawal are so negative that some members, for that reason, choose not to withdraw. And the court has thus recognized that Jehovah's Witnesses' practice of social ostracism, including within close families, is so burdensome that for many people it will result in them not daring to opt out. And at the same time, these people then generate financial support for the same organization that carries out these sanctions. So that's the thing, is financially supporting a religion that supports these exclusion practices, where they pull families apart and they use psychological manipulation within their members to make sure that they don't communicate with people that leave, family members that leave. So there's really no free withdrawal in this religion. Most people stay in it. They stay PIMO. We looked at the story of Lassie. He was PIMO for 14 years. He calls it undercover. He was in there. He couldn't get out. So finally last year he opted to get out. And of course he's ostracized. Now, goes on to say it may be legally right, but in what other context than religion would we accept something like this? Exactly. And what do the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves think about the fact that the court has found it proven that several of their members are members against their will? They're held hostage because they want contact with family. So how many PIMOs are in that organization? They're in there against their will. They just don't want to deal with the exclusion practice, the shunning, the disfellowshipping. Is this what taxpayers want? Good question. I know here in Canada and all over the world, taxpayers detest paying their tax money or giving tax cuts to these kinds of cults that just destroy families. Like, why the hell are we giving tax breaks to this cult religion? I ask the world that. Why are we giving this religion? It's not a religion, it's a cult. And we're giving it tax breaks. So we want to keep fighting this, all of us around the world, and not just rely on Norway to do all the fighting for us. Because this has to stop. Religions that aren't helping, they're not contributing, they're not transparent. They get F's and X's. They fail on the transparency of Charity Canada and charity all over the world. Why are we allowing this religion to have tax breaks? That's the question I ask. This religion tears apart families, breaks up homes, and people get depressed. People end up committing suicide because of the 11 cult members in New York. And why are we sending all our money there? Why is all the money being sent to New York? Why isn't it helping the poor in every country that it's collected? These are all questions we have. But no, the 11 cult members want all the money going to New York. Why? Because they have hundreds of millions of dollars to pay out in CSA lawsuits. They're criminals. These guys are criminals hiding behind a religion. And I beg everyone out there to keep pushing forward. because shunning has not stopped in this religion. And, I come back to, I'm just going to take a little bit of a break here before I finish this up, but I come back to this, the 2025 convention protest campaign. We have to get out there, put our sandwich board on, the last day of the assembly, get out there and tell them that, you know what, we're shunned, but we're not forgotten. And we can put xjwfriends.com on there. It's a website that pulls people in to help on the outside. So let's keep pushing this forward. The taxpayers do not want religions like this. We're going to look at this article again. We don't want this. That payments should be made in this way. What do the people who wrote the Religious Community Acts and included Section 6 think? So this from Vartland, it's asking some questions. Or avoids asking those questions. And they're questions that have to be answered. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses barely escape being labeled as an organization that perpetrates psychological violence against its children. So this is the passage in the judgment that is most shocking to us. If the Court of Appeal's judgment stands as a consensus, at the worst, the extensive work that has been done in recent years regarding children's protection from psychological violence in Norway and all over the world could be a serious setback. So as we interpret it, the verdict lands primarily in Jehovah's Witness favor because the terms psychological violence and negative social control are too poorly defined in the legislation. So better definitions of the terms are part of the important work that needs to be done in the future in order for these terms to have legal value. And regarding the process of judicial selection and social exclusion of children, the court writes on page 27, although the process can be very unpleasant and humiliating, the court nevertheless believes under doubt, you notice that, under doubt, that the process as such cannot be regarded as psychological violence. So they're not sure, they've never been disfellowshipped, these people in these courts. So they're not sure, so they put under doubt, but they didn't think it could be psychological violence. So the argument from the court is that in order to meet the definition of psychological violence, this process must constitute a pattern of abusive acts that persist over time. And this is what disfellowshipping is. It persists over time, but you see the court looked at it as just a one-time announcement you're kind of done with. And it's done, and then kind of normal family relations happen, just not spiritual. You can visit, you can go to movies, you can, if your brother was disfellowshipped, hey, you and him could get together and go fishing. Just don't talk about spiritual things. That's how they laid it out in court. And that's what the worldly people believe. So this has to be proven because these abusive acts persist over time. They persist forever. As long as you're on the outside of that organization, they will shun you, disfellowship you. You're excluded. There's no normal family relations. That's all lies. Lies put forth in the court of law to confuse the worldly people. So the witnesses' practices are documented as persistent acts over time. For sure they are, and the consequences of the ostracism persist for many, the rest of their lives. They often never get their family back. Nevertheless, the court believes that since the actual process of ostracism at the individual level is quick, it's not psychological violence in the sense of the law. So we would very much like the Supreme Court to rule on such a claim. So that's why, again, the Supreme Court is mentioned here. This has to go to the Supreme Court. They have to look at this. Obviously, the appellate court, they had a lot of doubts and they couldn't make that decision. So here it is. Here is the loophole that Jehovah's Witnesses celebrate as a great victory, that under doubt, with the help of a very special definition, they barely escape being labeled as an organization that perpetrates psychological violence against its children. And that's where they're at. The court writes this on page 28-29, that both the exclusion process and the social distancing of exclusion will be very stressful for most children. It is under doubt not likely that the practice constitutes psychological violence. So they're not sure, but not likely, because they didn't think it would continue. They don't really know. They don't really understand it. But their words kind of say some different things. So that's why I think, and Jan Frode Nielsen thinks that this should go to Supreme Court. Now, this is an assertion that we expect child welfare services and others to work with children's mental health to follow up in the future. And if this remains a consensus, it could apply not only to the children of Jehovah's Witnesses, but also to other minorities. And systemic, organized use of force to remove a child's family and social circle if he or she does not follow his or her parents' religious rules could be defined as approved by the Court of Appeal, and not something that the state and the administration can do anything about. Further thoughts, and this will conclude it. A lot of our motivation for doing this has been about public education and insight into the practice. We have achieved this regardless of the Court of Appeal's ruling, but there is still a lot of work to be done. The verdict is characterized by the fact that the court calls for documentation, they call for data, professional expertise in the area, data on the consequences of mental illness among those who fall outside these systems, who leave the Jehovah's Witnesses, and those of us who have experienced this and have been in the thick of it know firsthand that these harmful effects are there. We have people around us who are in the middle of the process, who are shattered. We have lost friends who couldn't take it anymore. We know what this means, and we have no way of scientifically collecting this data so that it can be used legally. So society must help us with this. So for all you guys out there, if you can help get some data together somehow, there are some studies. There are some studies going on. Now, is there the will to do this, or is everyone comfortable with the court's conclusion that as long as the harmful effects are not sufficiently documented, it's unlikely they exist? And this is kind of what it's at. It's not documented, so they don't exist. Everyone wants to sweep it all under the carpet. And when it comes to the conclusion itself, we trust the state will make the right decision, see the importance of this being decided in the Supreme Court. So this is what I noticed. This has to go to the Supreme Court. And it goes on to say that the opportunity is taken to legally define what the right to free withdrawal is, psychological violence can be decided, and negative social control. What do these things actually mean? So if there are no definitions that the law can accept, it will also be hopeless for the administration to comply with the Religious Communities Act requirement to take these conditions into account. So that's the end of the article. Thanks to everyone involved, Avoid JW for hosting it. We thank Jan Frode Nielsen for really sticking at it, and Raquel was on there. She was one of the ones that was making. She was in court. There was a lot of people that were making their stand in court. So all of this work isn't for nothing. We as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we have to take this, and if we're involved with the countries of politics, we can help them. We can help them to, from this case, it will help to define the rules even clearer. So certainly not done. Jehovah's Witnesses squeaked out of this because of doubt. But let's hope and see if this does go to Supreme Court. Well, that's all we have for you today. So, folks, keep living your life with love. When we do that, we're not involved with social ostracism of our children, our family, our friends. We visit, we associate. We realize that human beings need this contact. And by cutting off this contact, it weakens the family circle. And anytime the family circle is weakened, the countries are weakened. It weakens society. What does it do? It strengthens cults. It makes cults richer. It puts more money in their bank account. That's what it does. So thanks again, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.